Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto discussion. Today I want to do something different here on the channel, and I want to look back at Boruto Naruto Next Generations, but not one of these honest thoughts type videos, but instead I want to look back at Boruto from the perspective of what if I was in charge of everything in the anime and manga? How would I handle Boruto Naruto Next Generations? How would I fix it, to put it simply? It's really easy for us as fans to complain about a series or a subject and pick it apart on a week-by-week basis. It's something that you expect from fans because it's part of the journey of experiencing a series that is ongoing, and it can't be binged from start to finish. It's more about the experience than it is about the end of the story itself. It is about the ride that you get to the ending. Fan is short for fanatic, and oftentimes, what you see with fans is a lot of complaining, but no real solutions. Because oftentimes, with a lot of things from movies to wrestling, anime, manga, TV shows, fans more often than not, they don't know what they want until it's actually given to them. With Boruto, I think most of us would agree that the first impressions are what did the most damage to Boruto as a brand for a lot of people. And in order to fix the anime, you have to start with the manga. But in order to start with the manga, you have to understand why we even got a manga version of Boruto in the first place. For a lot of people such as myself who followed Naruto weekly, 2015's Boruto Naruto the movie rightfully felt like a sending off of the OG cast while making you curious about the new generation. But then 2016, it started a reset in a bad way. The decision to have Boruto the movie made into a manga for a whole 10 chapters of material, it was one of the worst decisions ever made, and I'll forever die on that hill. I get what Shueisha was attempting to do. Dragon Ball Super was readapting the Battle of God movie into a manga format, and the whole idea to have the entire story in manga format for people such as myself who prefer reading manga over watching anime. They would have everything at their fingertips. But the problem with Boruto is that it hadn't even been a year following the release of the movie before we got thrusted right back into a movie recap. I get wanting to respect the wishes of the Naruto series creator Masashi Kishimoto, who wanted to see Boruto the movie originally adapted into a manga drawn by himself. It was supposed to be consumed as a manga, but due to health issues, Kishimoto could not draw it as a manga. But in hindsight, that was a mistake that ultimately hurt the anime in the long run. You had a lot of fans such as myself who they dropped Boruto's manga 3 chapters in because it became clear this is going to be a very extended retelling of the movie that we just seen less than a year ago. And Boruto having an irregular schedule back then, it made it a lot worse. A lot of people, they checked out and they never got back on board with the manga. The very first thing I would do is I would have either completely leaned into the flash forward sequence via the storytelling method called in medias res, which is where a writer will start a story in the middle of a narrative or in the middle of a crucial set of events that happened prior, and all the events that happened before that are just filled in the story itself through passing statements and flashbacks and other writing elements. It's one of the most successful and iconic methods of storytelling when done right. However, we're just going to assume that that method is completely off the table because we don't know the ending for Boruto, so we can't even decide whether or not that is going to be something that works. But that brings me to the second method I would suggest. I would have started chapter 1 with that flash forward sequence where you had Boruto's monologue about how he used to be a brat and how part 1 was the story of father and son, but at the end of the day, this is his story and his father eventually doesn't play as big of a role. And I would have transitioned the manga right after that directly to the defeat of Momoshiki. So we're still using in medias res, but we're using in medias res within an in medias res. I do what Dragon Ball Super first did with the Broly movie in manga format, which is that it showed Goku and Vegeta versus Broly, and it said, hey, the events of this movie, it happened between this arc, and it moved on. I plug in Boruto the movie right there, one double page spread, move on, and then the next page would be Boruto realizing time had stopped, and we go into that Momoshiki stuff where he gets the Karma Seal. So the first chapter, part 1, opens up with the Karma Seal and the prophecy, and that would be a great bookend and long-term storytelling where the last chapter of Boruto part 1 ends with the prophecy of Momoshiki having come true. Everything comes full circle. That allows the story to have gone through quite a bit of storytelling and have better pacing at that. You get right into the Momoshiki twist. It keeps readers who initially dropped the series invested because it's not a rehash of a product that was barely a year old. The first 12 chapters of Boruto would have been Momoshiki given the karma, the Mujina Bandits arc, and then the line about Kara and the vessel going missing. And in chapter 12, it would have ended with Kashi and Koji, a guy who looks just like Jiraiya, using a toad to kill Ao. That's a much easier pill to swallow for someone trying to get into the story when you hit the ground running like that. However, that brings me to the anime. I wouldn't have started the anime 1 year after the manga began. That is what I strongly believe is the original sin, in my opinion, when it comes to the Boruto anime IP. Again, I get the business decision behind it. Boruto the movie made history as the highest grossing Naruto film in the entire Naruto franchise. That's a hard pill to swallow for people who hate Boruto, but take whatever your favorite Naruto movie was, take whatever your favorite Naruto Shippuden movie was, Boruto movie outgrossed it, and it wasn't even close. Instead of jumping right into Boruto's anime in spring of 2017, I would have continued what Studio Pierrot was already doing with Boruto during this time period. So you already had some staff and outsourced studios like Signpost and others that were working on the first 13 episodes of Boruto's anime, while Naruto Shippuden was in the final half year of running on TV. Legendary animators like Shung Won-shi worked on some of the Boruto episodes in the first arc. There was talent there in the first 13 episodes. There was actually quite a bit of Sakuga, but I would have took 2017 and I just would have continued Naruto Shippuden. You guys here on the channel, you know from the videos I've covered in the After Naruto Shippuden playlist how much story was not animated following the Ninja War, and that was a lot of stuff that could have been animated that addressed questions about how did these characters get this strong? What happened after the war? How did certain characters end up in marriage with each other? How was this technology growing this quickly? And what happened with Kakashi during that time period as Hokage? Was it all peaceful? Which it wasn't. And you would actually see what took place. I'd have taken 2017 to adapt all those stories so fans can see Kakashi Hiden, Lightning in the Frozen Sky animated, where you see Naruto getting confronted by the Ice Release user who lost her son during the 4th Ninja War because Tsunade took all the medics out the Land of Fire to serve as medics for the Ninja War. They get to see Naruto and Sai hunting down rogue ninjas who sympathize with Madara. They see Kakashi develop the Purple Lightning, fighting alongside Might Guy on one final mission, and show off how much Kakashi had improved in 1 year of training that made the line that we're told in Kakashi Retsunen about Kakashi being stronger than he was when he had the Sharingan. It would show you that wasn't cap. I dive even deeper into the Shikamaru Hiden story that was animated by adding another couple of episodes where you see Kakashi struggling with breaking that treaty with the nations to go hunt down Gingo himself because he feels personally responsible that Sai's in the situation he is. I would lean heavier into the rising influence of Madoru Uchiha after death, where we had several small factions like the one in the Land of Silence who were longing for the world that Madara believed in, that world without winners and losers, and they openly forsake the ruling authority of the 5 nations. I would have animated Sakura Hiden, Love Riding the Spring Breeze, so you see Naruto teaching at the academy, Kakashi rounding up the last remnants of Danzo's root loyalists, and still missing some like Sumere's father, which plants seeds for Sumere's character arc. You see some of the Anbu that are loyal to Danzo go, wait a second, if Hashirama cells were this powerful, what about Naruto and Sasuke cells? You know how much money we could make selling these things? Where they go to the final valley, they scrape up the DNA left behind by Naruto and Sasuke attempting to make a tail beast drug in a failed attempt at recreating the Sharingan. You'd see these pseudo Jinchurikis shooting off Biju Dama inside the Land of Fire during the battle that brought Sasuke back from his redemption journey, because those who were loyal to Danzo were taking advantage of Kakashi's stipulation for his pardon, which is that if Sasuke got into any trouble, Kakashi would have to rescind Sasuke's pardon. These Anbu were attempting to use these drugs to get the 5 Kage to order an execution of Sasuke. I can keep going, but you guys get the point by now. There's a lot of story material that could have easily made up a year of animated content. 50 weeks to give fans closure with the older generation before you shift to Boruto. 1 whole year of Naruto Shippuden content. All while that's going on, the manga right now will have another 12 chapters under its belt, which means before Boruto episode 1 would air in 2018, we would have been at the chapter where Kawaki learned the truth about Naruto from Kurama, and we are about to see Jigen pull up into Konoha at Naruto's house. However, where I make a major change is I would have skipped the Academy arc altogether. I wouldn't have been bothered with that material because you had a lot of people, such as myself, drop the anime because that Academy Day, school day bullshit turned them off. I made it to 4 episodes into Boruto and I dropped the series, which again, business-wise, I get why Kishimoto was listening here. He's the series creator and he warned us in December 2016 for Jump Festa 2017, he said the purpose of the anime was going to be to reach out to younger fans and show the peaceful times, while the manga showed how dark things were heading. But the problem with that whole approach is that with the anime, you can literally, legitimately debate whether or not the fan base expanded enough to make up for the loss of longtime fans who dropped the anime itself. I think that was a failed experiment, especially given how good of a job the anime did at making Boruto a disrespectful brat. Their goal was to increase the fan base. I think they shrunk it. They did a little bit too good of a job, to the point where literally one of the chief developers at CyberConnect, the people who make the Naruto Storm console games, was like, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the Saiyan Island interview in front of me because Saiyan Island's internet archives are not complete, but the guys at Shonen Games have a quote talking about how one of the developers was saying that they would rather do a Naruto reboot like in a Hogwarts Legacy style type of game because they had no interest in doing a Boruto game. And it goes back to perception. That quote that was on Saiyan Island years ago, it came back down to Boruto being a brat because of how he was first introduced. He basically said, Boruto is a brat. He does not train for what he gets, and I cannot support a character like that because Naruto worked so hard for his power and for his respect. I have no interest in making a game centered around him. Longtime fans, they felt personally attacked by seeing Boruto go at Naruto's throat. And sure, it is hypocritical because Naruto wasn't exactly an angel and he had more than his fair share of bratty moments. But as often is the case when it comes to something that runs as long as Naruto did, by the time you start knocking on 20 years like we were when Boruto first started, there's a lot of nostalgia glasses that are at play here, where those nostalgia blinders, they block a lot of things that people hate about Boruto, but they also accept it with Naruto. I'd have kicked out the room whoever it was that decided to cut Boruto's opening monologue, where he spoon feeds it to the audience that, hey, I'm a brat for the first part of my character arc. I would have started with that Boruto versus Kawaki stuff, that flash forward sequence in episode 1. It would have been Boruto's monologue shown, and then we would have went right into the anime adaptation of Naruto chapter 700, which to this day has never been animated. Then I would have continued there, and I would have done chapters 701 to 710, which were the Naruto Gaiden chapters that you know is the Shin Uchiha arc. Your first 11 episodes of the anime would have been bridging the gap between the OG cast and the new generation cast, and then I'd have gone into the Academy graduation arc to further expand the story and introduce more characters from Boruto's class. The arc itself, that's fine in terms of pacing and in terms of story content. The idea that you got Kakashi here, trouble at how strong these kids are, how skilled they are, and questioning if they even really understand that it takes more than strength and how many different jutsu you can perform to be a ninja. That was a strong enough conflict for the story itself. The former 6 Hokage saying time to do a ball check. Those 4 episodes are strong, they were good, and it would have rounded out the first home media release. Maybe you do a bonus episode showing Konohamaru meeting the members of Team 7 and selecting them as his team. That could work. Then I'd have gone straight into the versus Momoshiki arc from the moment Boruto and Kenshiki were making it clear they're coming to Earth, and Boruto's team discovering that mutated white Zetsu, and Sasuke versus Kenshiki and all that good stuff from the Chunin exams that showed the fights that were only hinted at in the movie and hinted at in the manga. And I would have ended with Boruto episode 66, where he's warned by Sasuke to tell him of anything that happens with the Karma Seal, and Boruto and Sarada learning that Orochimaru was Mitsuki's dad. The final episode would be the adaptation of the Mitsuki one-shot manga chapter that Masashi Kishimoto drew. You can do that arc now because it would have been 3 years since Boruto the movie came out, so it would have been a refresher. Now that 17 weeks of the versus Momoshiki arc, 18 when you count the Mitsuki one-shot, that would have been my central focus to get that arc done. One other change that I would have made was that even though Masashi Kishimoto created Urashiki and he always meant for him to be part of the movie, but Urashiki's part of the movie got cut out due to time constraints for the Boruto movie, if we absolutely had to have Urashiki in the anime version, I would have insisted that we kill him off here, and I would have had one of the car inners like Delta or Jigen do it to show that there is a bigger force out there that Naruto and the others are not aware of yet. And if you do it as Jigen and you have Urashiki recognize the voice, since it's Ishiki's voice, that would be poetic foreshadowing. By this point, you don't have Boruto being nearly as an unwatchable brat because it's only been viewed in bite-sized chunks, and you've resolved the bratty Boruto arc in 30 episodes, which is a lot easier to convince someone to watch the anime instead of saying, hey, you need to wait around 75 episodes before that whole thing is resolved. By this point in time, you'd be off to a strong start with the first 2 Boruto Blu-ray releases, and you'd have adapted 12 chapters of material that Masashi Kishimoto drew before Boruto, and you only would have had 1 chapter from Boruto's manga, but you would have successfully bridged the gap between the OG cast and the new cast. Now you can start putting more focus on Boruto's generation. It will be at this point in the manga that we would be another 8 chapters ahead. So by this point in the story, we will be at the Borushiki reveal, which if you're keeping track, we'd be over halfway done with part 1 of Boruto's manga. At this point, I'd have done the Hozuki Castle arc for Boruto's anime and the Mujina Bandits arc, so now you have the first anime canon arc starting at episode 30 to episode 37, and 4 episodes adapting the Mujina Bandits arc. If you really want to play around with it, which I'm not going to do for this video, but you could adapt the Sasuke, Shin, and the Teacher Star Pupil story and work the storyline as Sasuke keeping a close eye on Boruto because of that karma seal. And that also would have given us an arc where Sasuke's training Boruto, and I've covered that whole story here on the channel. By this point in the timeline, Boruto's anime, if we just do the Hozuki Castle arc and the Mujina Bandits, it would be at 41 episodes, and the manga would have been about to release the chapter where Jigen was killed. At this point, I'd have done the car actuation arc, another anime original arc, and one that most fans will say is the best Boruto anime original arc of the series. It goes right from Sasuke learning about Kara to now we meet the core villains of the story in under 50 episodes, and because the arc itself starts off with Sasuke and Sai, you're again continuing to bridge that gap between older fans and new fans. So we're clear here, I'm referring to adapting Boruto episodes 157 to episode 177. So it ends off where Naruto was made aware of Kara and he was debating shutting down the village. That's another 20 episodes for you, which is another 5 months for the manga to get ahead, which that will put us at the chapter where Naruto's using burial mode for the first time. The 2 anime original arcs that you get, they added substance to the story and not something boring like Chocho mastering her clan's hidden jutsu, the butterfly mode because she wants to look sexy for that actor she wants to impress, or the episodes where Dinky is building a goddamn supercomputer that we never see again. Nobody cares about those episodes, which again, I understand why Kishimoto gave that Chocho arc to the anime. It's something he wanted done, but never let that man cook anime original episodes again if he thinks that's a good story. At this point, I would have then gone on to adapt the Owl arc the way that the anime did it. So in this timeline that we're in now, we'd be 61 episodes in the Boruto's anime. I don't know about you, but these 61 episodes, that sounds like a lot easier to get through than that bullshit that we got. And we'd be adapting what we know as Boruto episodes 178 to 180, where the anniversary for the 4th Ninja War is shown and Owl's return happens, and we learn what happens that allowed him to survive, and then we circle back to Car because the vessel is leaving in episode 180, which would for us be episode 64. The next 10 weeks would adapt the Owl arc from Boruto's manga while keeping the anime original content as mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, the manga would be getting ready to release the chapter where Kawaki tricks Momoshiki by forcing him to absorb the chakra that Kawaki used for fire release. This means that the anime would now have 71 episodes material. Again, for the scorekeepers at home, Boruto Part 1 would have 26 chapters of material left for Part 1, and we'd now just be starting the Kawaki arc in Boruto's anime. So for this part of the timeline, in this alternate timeline, Boruto's anime would just now be starting chapter 14 of that manga, and the manga itself would be at chapter 44 because we cut 10 chapters from the Momoshiki arc and just started from Boruto getting the karma seal. I would keep the anime's Kawaki arc exactly as we got it, going the full span of 32 episodes, where you have a blend of anime original episodes and manga content, but I would have kept the Ishiki speech telling Code to become a god, which that was cut out of episode 218. However, this is where the manga story will be going into Boruto versus Code beginning to take place, and there's an elephant in the room. We'd be at the moment in time where Boruto's anime is taking a 4-month hiatus due to the COVID pandemic that shut down the anime for production for 4 months, but the manga was still ongoing during that time. So by the time the anime would return, The manga would be at the chapter where Boruto is killed by Kawaki, which that leaves us with 14 chapters of material left in part 1. When the anime returned, I would have made an anime original arc for the story, and I would have chosen to start the arc off with a flashback. In episode 220, Amato spoke about having made several humans and a cyborg stronger than Jigen. I would have taken that information and I would have done a mini arc going into those days where Amato was trying and failing to undermine Jigen and showing more of that dynamic where you see people like Ada and Damon and what led to them being sealed away. There's enough there for a short 8-episode arc and expanding on early days of Kar and explaining why Jigen never made a move throughout all this time until he finally stepped out the shadow, which for the purposes of the anime, Boruto's anime, would now be at episode 101. It's at this point I would have begun a longer arc, and one that I thought the anime was going to do because the manga built in anime filler for the anime to do. I would have given you another Kar actuation arc style anime original arc, but this time it would have been dealing with Sasuke going off to look for the remnants of Kar on his own, and Sai and the Anbu leading a team of shinobi into tracking down all the remaining Kar outers. I'd have shown Code destroying the basis of all the Kar hideouts. I'd lean heavy into that whole cat and mouse angle of hunting down Code, but this time, this arc, this setup would be different. I would have started off with Sai and say Team 7 and Konohamaru on a joint mission with Sai's Team 25, raiding a base and taking down a group of Kar outers and finding that it was destroyed by Code. A short 4-episode mini arc like we're accustomed to. And at the end of the arc, Sai would find a clue that's pointing Sasuke into the direction of Radaku country, and you end that Blu-ray set off with Sasuke reading the note saying it's close to that place from a long time before, which is a nod to Radaku country. Now, this is where I do what the anime did not do, which is I would have adapted the entire Naruto Retsuden trilogy, 13 episodes per novel, which those of you guys who have watched the videos when I covered those stories, which I have playlists on the homepage for that, you know there's a lot of material that could have easily been adapted if done properly. That story is deep enough where you can't just adapt the story halfway through it like they did with Sasuke Retsuden and try and tell an abridged story for 3 novels of content. That's how most people are confused about what happened. Each Blu-ray that we would have here would be an adaptation of the light novels for Kakashi Retsuden, Sasuke Retsuden, Naruto Retsuden. 3 Blu-ray. It gives a chance for each member of the OG Team 7 to have their own sub-arc and be part of their swan song as we begin to start transitioning to the end of Boruto. Kakashi Retsuden would go over the history of the Sage of Six Paths near his final days. It'd have Kakashi being faced with his past and his helplessness with Naruto slowly dying at the hands of that chakra disease. Kakashi reliving stuff that we didn't see regarding the White Fang's death and how Kakashi met Minato for the first time. Kakashi practicing the teachings of the Sage of Six Paths by helping people in this country while plotting a coup d'etat to overthrow the prime minister and raise the prince into being a rightful ruler. And it would conclude with Kakashi battling 300 mercenaries and shinobi by himself and fighting a chakra tool left by the Sage of Six Paths that had the power to flood an entire nation. And you see Kakashi's ninjutsu has some pretty amazing feats that will make all your inner power scalers start salivating, which that's all content from that novel we never saw adapted. Sasuke's Retsuden, it would get a proper adaptation and not be the rush material that we got in the anime. So we see things like Orochimaru's flashback going into Radaku as a rogue ninja, looking for the info on the Sage of Six Paths, researching the Edo Tensei, researching resurrection and immortality. We see stuff like Sakura's new sensory jutsu. We see Sakura's fire release. We get more stuff like Sasuke struggling with his bloodlust at times because of the anger he had at Naruto potentially dying and his fear of losing Naruto and Sasuke's fear that he would fall back into darkness if Naruto died. Then we would adapt Naruto Retsuden where you saw stuff like Orochimaru making the Byakugan goggles from Hinata's chakra. You'd see Naruto versus Orochimaru take place. You see Naruto reflecting on his mortality, wishing that his parents Minato and Kushina could see Boruto and Himawari, wishing he could show Jiraiya, Zabuza, and Nagato what this world of peace between nations look like. Naruto wanting to train Boruto personally, like Boruto had been begging, but Naruto being hit by that illness and hiding the heart attack like symptoms he was experiencing, and Boruto thinking his dad didn't want to train him because he was more focused on the Hokage position, which was a lie that Naruto told to Boruto, hurt his feelings in order to hide his pain. Yet you see the maturity here where Boruto, who at the start of the anime would have said, my story starts with me being a brat, Boruto right now tells Naruto that he understands how important the Hokage position is and that he's not a brat anymore, and that he'll take care of Naruto's wife and take care of Himawari while Naruto takes care of the village, so Boruto can support Naruto, because Boruto wants to be a Shadow Hokage to support the Hokage. You would see father and son's relationship coming full circle again right before the ending of Boruto, where Naruto's obviously sealed away. I'd end the Sasuke flashback with him standing at the doorsteps of a Akara hideout. You see all these bodies laid on the ground around him of Akara outers, and you see Code in the distance making his way towards the land of snow, feeling like the walls are closing in and knowing that he needed to defy Jigen's orders and release Ada. By this point, Boruto's manga would be doing Code versus Damon and Code swearing to make everyone pay for what it is that they've done. We would only have 9 chapters left of Boruto Part 1, and this is where I say lay it on extra thick for the anime. This is where you start getting into the emotions. I'd start the next Blu-ray off with the first 4 episodes centering around the Uzumaki family as one of those transition arcs, but instead of some random slice of life, I'd have them pull what Naruto did, where he took time off for that Hot Springs episode where they played ping pong, but I do something focused around the land of whirlpools, the land where Naruto's mother came from, and I make the villain of that arc a displaced Uzumaki parent around Naruto's age and a child around Boruto's age. There's enough there for 4 episodes of material, and it will begin the process of closing out the story of father and son, which is what Part 1 was. Then I go into the Code Assault arc with the intention of stopping the arc where Code makes a vow to destroy Konoha, so all the way up until chapter 71 of the manga. However, we all remember how Boruto's anime did the Code Assault arc. It was a rush job due to the unhealthy production schedule, and a lot of things were they're either cut or they're combined. I wouldn't do that here. I go the full 16 episodes, just as what we normally got for Boruto, where it was 1 chapter per episode, and I'd only add in a little fluff where needed. Basically what One Piece did in the early days. By this point, the manga would only have 3 chapters left, and I'd do another 6 transition episodes, but this time I'd be focusing on the growing tension between Boruto and Kawaki and the desperation of Sarada and Mitsuki to grow stronger so they can face Otsutsuki and not be left out by Boruto next time he's in danger. I go 2 episodes dealing with Sarada and her seeking out training from Sasuke. I go 2 episodes with something centered around Mitsuki doing something similar with Orochimaru. I do 1 episode with Kawaki and 1 episode with Boruto grappling with this whole Momoshiki situation, and us as the audience seeing Momoshiki manifesting outside of Boruto's body occasionally without Boruto realizing what's happening. At that point, I go into adapting the rest of Boruto's manga, but I will put the anime on another break. This time the anime will be at 166 episodes. Allow me to explain before you get your pitchforks here. He's like, wait a second, we already got a break now. Why we want to break in some fake alternate timeline? So the manga would only have 2 chapters left now, and we'd be 2 weeks away from the next to last chapter Boruto dropping. So in 2 weeks in this timeline, you only got 1 chapter left. I take a 4-month break to finish up the pre-production that the anime was already doing. I drum up a marketing campaign with a timer on the official Naruto website, the social media accounts, hyping up the anime's return for the final arc of Boruto Part 1. By that point, the manga would already be finished, and I'd be coming back with the remaining 9 chapters of Boruto's story with the decision to turn it into a movie. Now, you could always go and do the rest of the story in animated format, either by another Boruto anime original arc that goes on for 25 episodes with pre-production and core production of the last arc that began, but that goes right back to the heart of the issue, which is Boruto's anime has too much unnecessary material, and you run the risk of what the first Fullmetal Alchemist anime had, which is a cluster F towards the end where the manga ending doesn't work, so you get an anime original ending. That's not what we want. So yeah, I will put the anime on break, make episode 166 the final episode, and at the end of that episode, I would announce the movie, bringing it full circle where we started this whole Boruto journey with the movie, and we end the journey with the Boruto movie. Being realistic given Studio Pierrot's production schedule and how it took over a year for Black Clover to go from being worked on to finally releasing, I go with this whole arc as a movie, which would take realistically just over a year to produce. But the trade-off is that once the movie is out, you would have Boruto 2 Blue Vortex out, and the story would be well into the time skip at that point, and there would be enough material for the anime to start thinking about planning pre-production. With Boruto as a story, the main drawback is that you're always going to run into the fact that it is a monthly release. So if you want to cut down on the BS episodes, you either have to pull an Attack on Titan or Full Metal Alchemist card and take a multi-year 4 to 5 year break, or you end up with what we had, which is a bunch of meaningless nonsense. I didn't say anything like just make the manga weekly because I want to be realistic. I'm not going to give you something that realistically couldn't happen. Ikimoto and his staff, they're not going to be able to pull off a weekly manga. Ikimoto said as much himself. And most importantly, manga contracts, if this contracted for weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, those typically don't change unless you get a special exception like Tatsuki Fujimoto did with Chainsaw Man, but Boruto don't sell nowhere near what Chainsaw Man does in physical or digital releases. Seasonal Boruto isn't something that the production committee for Boruto would have ever agreed to following the success of Boruto the movie. If that movie never came out, potentially, but that was never going to happen. Studio Pierrot, on the other hand, they would have jumped at that if that is saying the matter. But again, TV Tokyo and the other investors, they're the ones who get the final say on whether or not Boruto's weekly or seasonal. Which, if you're curious about Boruto's anime return, you can click the link down in the description box to watch that video, or you can click here to watch my Chainsaw Man review.